Hi, it's Toby from Heavyweight MMA here today again with Australia's industry-leading exercise physiologist Glen Phipps, and we're talking about a new program of his. Talking about small efforts for large gains. We're saying in this time, like you said, getting up to winter, sometimes you got some spare time, you want to improve your body. In this case, we're talking about flexibility and strength, man. Can you talk about it a little bit?
What an intro. Okay, so the new program I'm looking at doing called Stretch Yourself Strong. Part of the reason I came up with it is that, once I guess you get over, I should say conservatively 30, but, I'm a little bit past 30 as you are. You still want to do stuff, right? Like, you're still doing BJJ and kickboxing and everything else. And we all want to do that sort of stuff too. And as we were talking about beforehand, a lot of people want to, but they don't do it. And I think a lot of times they don't do it because they're scared of getting hurt, or they're scared of that bad back that they wake up with in the morning getting worse, or a niggling knee or a shoulder or whatever. And I really think as you get older, you need to do stuff so that you can do stuff. Like you can't just do your sport. You need to have some sort of maintenance around it, which is essentially what you should do when you're 22, but you're a little bit bulletproof when you're 20. So that's the number one reason I came up with this. But the other reason is that so many people come and see me and they have these grand plans of what they're going to do so they can get back to footy or play soccer or go running again. And they can have the best plan in the world, like whoever is the actual apparent industry leader can give them the program. And they often come back and say, I don't have time to do it. And I think, the biggest problem is as we're older as well. I shouldn't say older, but as we're not as youthful, we're also busier. We've got families and jobs. And when you're 20, you could run around to whatever you wanted, which I guess you can later too. But so I also wanted to have something that was really time efficient, and something I've been doing myself for the last couple of years as someone who runs a business and wants to do their sports and has kids and everything. Just popping in 5 minutes here and there, or even while you're making dinner, chucking in a couple of exercises or whatever, can be super effective. And to be fair, it's probably the way we were more built to do stuff anyway.
Yeah, man. And the thing about flexibility and strength and that we know, especially at our age, we kind of know our bodies, right? And we know we should be doing some of these things. Like I know in the back of my head that I should be spending time and focusing here and there on flexibility and strength, but I'm more inclined to jump in and do the sport itself. When you can include these sort of programs that'll actually like support your other training, right? And also avoid some of the injuries that you can get and balance your body more than anything, right?
Yeah, I think it's interesting when you say flexibility and strength, because people often choose one or the other to work on. And that was the other idea of Stretch Yourself Strong, is that we separate these things so much that they're essentially all the same stuff, but we do need to have it as a continuum, because there was a paper that came out a year or so ago. I don't even know if it ever got published, actually. It was a pre-published print article, and spoke about how strength training was as good as stretching for flexibility. It was as good for flexibility in terms of keeping it, but it wasn't as good for flexibility for getting it. So essentially you need to have a stage of gaining flexibility. Once you've got that flexibility, you need to have a strategy to keep it. And that can definitely be full range strength training, but we don't necessarily need to choose one or the other. And that's part of this program, why it's a body weight training program, is that what we're looking to do first is gaining our flexibility. So there's 4 phases: gaining flexibility, essentially learning how to use it, like more neural command of our movement patterns, then getting strong through our range. So things like eccentric and I guess the trendy terms end range training, and then putting rate of force development into it. So particularly if you're in a sport that requires explosiveness, something like explosive isometrics, which are basically just coming into a full contraction in an exercise as fast as you can, have actually been shown to be as beneficial as plyometrics for improving power. So, and they're such simple things to do. And you don't necessarily need to be super warm for them either. Like, You just chuck these things in here and there, and your improvement can be massive with such minimal input.
And saying that on minimal input, you mentioned that you're going to be breaking it down. The course is broken down into different sessions, like a 20-minute session as kind of a base for a week, and then several smaller sessions like 5-minute sessions or something like this, correct?
Yeah. So really, I guess I'm looking at narrowing on the main problem areas that people come in with, being shoulders, low back, hips, hamstrings. And when I say hips, we tend to reference kind of knee pain and a bit of ankle stuff in there too. So the 5-minute sessions are more area specific. So what has tended to happen in my other programs that are similar to this is people tend to choose the areas that they feel they need to work on more throughout the week. So whilst I'll say, here's some 5-minute sessions, try and do these once a day, people tend to repeat the ones that they need more. And there is an assessment process at the start to help guide that. But, that's the other thing too. Often our strength training or our stretching or whatever seems to be done in areas where we feel more comfortable doing them rather than doing them for the areas that feel less comfortable. It's like why, people might just because it's a done thing do hamstring stretches, but maybe they only need a hamstring stretch and even stretch some of the other areas around their hips to help their hamstrings actually move better.
Yeah, man. And the other thing that kind of interests me a little bit more than say yoga, like yoga, again, you have to put yourself there for a certain amount of time. You have to be there X amount of times a week, a certain amount of time. And it's kind of yoga for yoga's sake sometimes, where this is just based more on functionality and something that I can understand more as someone who's not really into something like yoga, right?
Yeah. So with my other site, Not Really Yoga, is a program I've had for a while. And I often said with that, one of the things I spoke, I guess, against was that yoga just makes you good at yoga. So it tends to be more about how people look in a pose rather than what they're getting out of it. And the reason I came up with the Not Really Yoga thing was because, I taught yoga for 10 years or so. And because at the time I was attracting a lot of athletes and people who knew my background and everything. And I don't think I could give them what they needed in a yoga class without starting to move a long way away from yoga. And that was kind of how that ended up coming about. So essentially the Stretch Yourself Strong program is a Not Really Yoga program as such.
Yeah, man. And we're talking about a 12-week program, as you mentioned, moving through flexibility to end up with, more functional sort of movement and power and flexibility all combined. What can you expect to kind of feel through that program, and what would be the end goal? Like you're starting with X, like me now, certain, maybe tightness in certain areas and things that I could work on. In 12 weeks, would I see much of an increment in that? Do you think? Is 12 weeks enough time, or is that something?
I think if you have areas of tightness, you should be able to notice improvements within the first few weeks. What we tend to find in terms of improvements in tightness initially is they are more like a sensory improvement. So basically you improve what's called your stretch tolerance. So you become more tolerant to being stretched, which is awesome, but that doesn't necessarily create ongoing change. So the program is designed around, the premise that we don't just want to change the way we feel about stretching. We actually want to create structural change. And structural change means laying down, more muscle fibers and things like this. So by having a strategy where we capitalize on our improved range of movement and gaining strength through that range, that's where we do make actual physical change to the muscle. So yeah, by the end of 12 weeks, you should not just have better range of movement, you should actually have lasting range of movement as well.
That's cool, man. And just to jump into like the cost and where to find it and this sort of thing as well.
Price is going to be released on June 1, along with the launch of the program. There's going to be an initial run with a discount for founding members. Essentially because I want to use the founding members, I shouldn't say use, I would like the help from the founding members in terms of allowing me to build the best programming I can over the course of that 12 weeks. So it's certainly something that will be pliable to those people in the program, because as an exercise physiologist and people that I see, I can come up with what I think everyone that will need, but it's certainly going to be catered to those people who are in it who might come up with different ideas that I didn't initially have.
No worries, man. So what we'll do is we'll release this when it's out, and I'll just post now the cost of the program and where to find it. Okay, so Glenn, as I've just put up the price and the contact point to find the course, can you let me know what they get for that money? Like, what are they going to achieve, and what do they get for that initial outlay?
So essentially, it's all online. There will be broken up into 4 3-week phases, where over the course of each 3 weeks, there's one main session to focus on. This was very deliberate, making it one main session, as in past programs I've probably thrown too much at people. So I want people to really perfect this one session. To complement that, there'll be a bunch of 5-minute sessions that are really body part specific, targeting those areas that people, I guess, themselves are personally looking to gain more strength, flexibility, and anything that came up in their assessments. And then there's also some incidental exercise, which is, I feel, a real key component and is a really underestimated thing in terms of the way we look at exercise, where there's daily challenges and weekly challenges and just trying to hit a quota of how many reps you do of something per day or per week. And, this is something that's been really powerful for me. And I think it's really the way we were designed to do stuff. Exercise is just something that we made up. And I don't think you sell equipment or gym memberships by telling someone to, for example, pump out 5 or 10 push-ups here or there, but it's something that our body really responds to, not just in terms of strength and flexibility, but also in terms of our metabolism. And it's something that I've actually used with massive success with my diabetic patients in terms of getting people off meds and losing weight. And it's a really, really powerful way of moving our body, just having incidental stuff in there wherever we can fit it in.
Cool, man. All right, well, looking forward to the course, man. I'll definitely take part once it's out in June, and we'll get back on and discuss the benefits, maybe with some of the other guys that have done it as well.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Cool. All right, mate. Thanks, man.